Hello, this is 10 Walks That Explain Everything. This is the second of my walks. I'm Nicholas Walton. Second of my walks explaining the Netherlands. It's a walk across a really extraordinary part of Zeeland. As you can see behind me, it's the delta, and there's the delta works. I'm on an island with this enormous beach, and this is where the big river systems that come across the whole of Europe, the Maas and the Rhine, they empty themselves out into the North Sea. This one is all about the fragility of nature, and for that we actually go back to 1953 for the event that the Netherlands faced in the middle of winter that really made them realize that whatever they had to protect them from the sea, from water, it wasn't enough, and they had to do more. This is where the barrier walk begins. Have a look at this. It's extraordinary. Take a look at the strength of the water below. If you fell in here, you'd end up in England in no time. What happened back in 1953 was that there was a very strong wind blowing across the North Sea. There was a storm tide, really high tide out there in the North Sea. This didn't happen in isolation because, of course, up there it was the very end of January, very beginning of February, and there was a lot of water coming downstream as well. You didn't just have water coming up, but water coming down, and trapped in the middle was the Netherlands, and the water had nowhere to go but across the land. There was no low tide. The tide was meant to go down, but the water levels were such that they just stayed high, and when what should have been the high tide came, it got even higher. When the flood defences were overwhelmed, the dykes were overwhelmed, and the water just coursed across this flat land through the villages and towns. The people climbed onto roofs to escape, men, women and children. People helped each other. They had sandbags to try and stop the water getting into their houses, and they used little boats. But ultimately there was nothing they could really do. There was a massive rescue operation. I was reading some of the newspapers from the time, but until the water went, there was just a feeling of helplessness. The cost was enormous. 2,500 people died. Not far from 200,000 animals were killed, drowned in the waters. People tried pulling together to deal with things as well as they could have done. They were clinging to rooftops. They were taking sandbags around to stop the waters where they could. They were using boats to rescue people who were trapped, men, women, children. It was absolutely dreadful. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. You get a sense of it when you read some of the newspapers from back then, especially before they, could even rest to find out what to get the scale of the damage a few days later. During it, there was just terror. When the waters went down, didn't just leave all of this damage and death, destruction. There was a psychological scar. The Dutch knew that what they'd used to keep the water out in the past was no longer enough. When you had freak events like this, it could just wash away everything. This is a country that just couldn't rest. As I said, this is a fragile land. And that's when they really started to think, right, how can we engineer a solution to this? That's what I'm walking across now, the Delta Works. And that's what the third of these videos for this Zeeland walk will be about. Let's take a bit of a closer look at these things. I have these enormous hydraulic piles that, I don't know, I'm not going to use any technical terms here because it'll just make me look stupid, but you've got these enormous hydraulic things, pistons I suppose, that kind of push down this barrier, and that barrier basically can be lowered and raised, calibrated exactly to let the right amount of water in and the right amount of water out, depending on which way the tide is going. I mean, they're quite magnificent. I got a liking for big engineering structures when I was growing up, just near Middlesbrough in Teesside in the northeast of England. And one of the projects that everyone had to do in art was to go into the ICI works and the chemical works in town and draw them with all the pipes and all of the machines and all of the flares and everything off in the distance. And you really gained an appreciation of the kind of machines that make the world function out of sight, with all the pretty stuff on one side and all the pipes and everything on the other. But we like the pipes as well as the pretty stuff. I mean, look at this. Look at those blocks of concrete. Look at all the steps going up and down. God, I find things like this fascinating, and they have a beauty all of their own. Fine place for a picnic.